If the Founding Fathers saw Donald Trump's modern tariff wars, some reaching 145% on Chinese imports, would they grab a quill? Or a pitchfork? Or maybe just start a really angry group chat? Would they see a bold defense of national sovereignty? Or the kind of economic power move that caused them to literally spill the tea into Boston Harbor? Welcome to History Reacts. So, who were the Founding Fathers anyway? Washington? Jefferson? Hamilton? Franklin? Freedom's original hype squad, men with strong opinions and even stronger hair, united by a distrust of centralized power, a hatred for foreign economic control, and an unhealthy obsession with powdered wigs. They built a government centered on liberty, debate, and vibes. Washington, ever the unifier, warned against entangling alliances and urged economic independence without political drama. Hamilton, the architect of American finance, favored federal strength and manufacturing power. Jefferson, the philosopher-farmer, wanted limited government and agrarian independence. Franklin balanced pragmatism with idealism. They didn't always agree, but they definitely believed you shouldn't be taxed by surprise. Fast forward to today. In true BTE, big tariff energy fashion, President Trump dropped sweeping tariffs, 10% on nearly everything, 145% on Chinese imports. Supporters called it a power move. Critics called it a wallet killer. Prices went up. Trade partners got salty. And somewhere in economic theory heaven, Adam Smith smashed his brand new teapot, probably made in China. These tariffs weren't just hidden in the fine print, they were headline-grabbing, tweet-worthy taxes. And, to the founders, the real question wouldn't just be how much, but who said you could do that? Back in 1773, colonists dumped tea into the Boston Harbor, not because they were secretly coffee people, but because they absolutely despised surprise taxes from across the pond. That protest wasn't about caffeine, it was about consent. Today's tariffs? Often dropped like diss tracks, with little warning and even less congressional input. The founders would have been like, wait, so the president can just hit post and boom, tax? After all, you don't fight an empire just to reboot it with less tea and more tariffs. In Jefferson's ideal America was self-reliant, local and agricultural. Hamilton's vision was industrial, global, and centralized. Trump's tariffs lean Hamiltonian, designed to protect domestic production and assert national power. But would the founders support using tariffs as weapons in modern trade wars? Possibly. Yet, they would also be deeply concerned about economic isolationism. They valued resilience, but not at the cost of prosperity. And they feared that overuse of tariffs could provoke new global conflicts, both economically and diplomatically. No taxation without representation was more than a slogan. It was a philosophy. The founders believed taxes should be openly debated, not stealth-dropped in a press conference, or worse, a Twitter thread. And yes, we still call it Twitter. Today, many tariffs bypass that process. They're executive orders, announced on cable news or social media. Jefferson and Madison would most likely demand a return to congressional control. Hamilton might defend Trump's executive strength. But even he insisted on institutional accountability. To all of them, secret taxes were a step toward tyranny. Federalism, the founders' version of a content-sharing agreement, was a core feature of the Constitution. In fact, the founders were constantly negotiating the balance between national coordination and local control. Trump's tariffs apply to all states, but hit very different depending on where you live. States that rely on imports or exports get dinged the hardest. If they were around today, the founders would likely push for more state input or at least regional consultation. Jefferson, in particular, would argue that such broad policies shouldn't ignore the unique voices of farmers, merchants, and working people across states. So, what's the final verdict? I think it's safe to say the founders would not be on the same page. Washington, ever wary of foreign entanglements, would likely urge restraint. and remind everyone that real strength comes from unity, not sudden policy shifts. Hamilton might raise a glass to bold economic power, Jefferson might pen a fiery letter in protest, and Franklin, well, he'd drop a clapback so hard it'd get archived in the Library of Congress. But one thing's for sure, they'd all want a vote. These people helped build a nation where economic policy wasn't dictated, it was debated. Trump's tariffs might remind them of the very taxes they fought to escape. And they definitely caution that without representation, even the best-intentioned policies can turn into the very tyranny they once rebelled against. What do you think? Would the Boston Tea Party become the iPhone import protest? Would Jefferson start a Substack called Letters from Monticello? Sound off in the comments. And remember to like and subscribe to History Reacts for more historical hot takes with a generous helping of 18th century side-eye.